Good morning, this is your Cherry Peak Ski Report for Saturday, March 18th, 2023. Live from the Snowcat. We have a mid-mountain base depth of 65 inches with no new snow in the past 24 hours. Roads to the mountain are bare and dry, and the skies are mostly clear. Yep, you heard it right. It's going to be a bluebird day at the peak, so come on up and get your fresh turns. Today's operational hours are 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. day skiing and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. for night skiing. We'll be operating Gateway Triple Chairlift, Vista Triple Chairlift, and the Summit Lift. We'll also be operating the Magic Carpet. This will service tubing and the Bunny Hill. Be sure to complete your digital waiver before arrival for all tubing tickets. Well, our annual pass sale is underway. Yes, get your whole family involved for as little as $749. Can't beat it. Buy today and ski today. Also, we've got our Peak Pass that you can't beat that starts at $149 for an individual. Go to skicpr.com for any other information and details. We'll catch you at the peak.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
The following is a paid program of commercial time on KVNU. The information, offers, and claims are solely those of the sponsor and not the opinions of this station, its affiliates, management, or employees. It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
Good morning. Saturday morning in March. 15 degrees, but we're talking gardens.
Did you say March?
Morning.
I thought it was January.
Well, yeah, earlier this month it definitely had that January look to it. My goodness.
I really felt like by St. Patrick's Day we'd have all the snow gone, and it was, kind of close.
It's making a move, yeah.
Kind of close.
It's getting there.
We need about 3 more days and 50-degree temperatures. So
yeah, it's just been. It looks beautiful out there, but it's been cold.
It's just chilly. It's just chilly.
Yesterday, 32 was our high.
Yeah. We needed a little bit more. But when you stood in the sun, it felt really good.
Oh yeah,
it felt like spring. And it really felt like spring in our greenhouses because we've got bare root fruit trees, and then this week we got in bare root currants and blackberries and blueberries and elderberries, and asparagus came in this week as well too, and our potatoes came in this week, and we've got onion plants, and it just kind of feels like it's supposed to be spring.
So if it's a really snowy day, all you do is head to the greenhouse.
Exactly. And just stand out there and feel the warmth. There's pansies in the greenhouse. So we got some pansies in the other day. We got some early vegetables, so some broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower. So we're there. We can kind of start doing things, but I think the official first day of spring is what, tomorrow.
Is it the
19th? Yeah, 19th is tomorrow.
Right.
So yeah, we're like right there, Bill.
All right. Well, good. My wife was wondering a question: if we do have kind of a late spring, does that mean we're going to have a rather short growing season for gardens, or is it just too early to tell just yet?
Right now, you can't really tell. And of course, last year we had the snow melt off really early, so I was out planting peas and stuff on the 10th of March last year. Yeah. And this year I can't even get out my garden. And so it started earlier, but then it stayed cold and wet much, much longer. And so it was hard for people to get things going. So I would say we had a much shorter year last year, even though it was intensively hot in the summertime. It was cold and wet, cold and wet, cold and wet, cold and wet.
Yeah.
And then it finally just went hot and dry first week of June. And then we were dry and just really hot after that. And so that absolutely affected everyone's crops. Peppers were slow to mature. Tomatoes were slow to mature. It was hard to get things planted when the timing was right. So this actually is more manageable because it's early enough. All we're dealing with right now is like early crops. So for early crops that you basically could plant as soon as the soil dries out and as soon as the snow melts off, you could do peas, spinach, lettuce, radishes, onions, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, kale, all those early crops. They can just go in as soon as you can get out there and not sink up to your neck in mud. And pansies and primroses, they can handle the cold. If it freezes, they'll be fine. It just doesn't bother them at all.
As long as it's not a hard freeze or just any freeze?
They can handle the cold. So today, when I left my house, it was 19.
Yeah.
The pansies would be fine.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
good.
Yeah, they'd
good.
be fine out there. I'm not going to plant mine for a little bit because it's still too muddy. Still too muddy, but it's coming along. So all those early crops, they'll be a little bit later planted than usual, but it's supposed to be kind of wet again next week. So we're gonna
starting Sunday night.
Yeah, we're probably going to get rid of the rest of the snow if we get rain and we get 40-degree temperatures. It looked like we were going to hit mid-40s. That snow's going to just disappear. And then as soon as things dry out, maybe the end of next week, we could get that planted. So we're probably still going to get stuff planted here in March. It's just going to condense our season a little bit for our early season. But then I think long-range forecasts that I saw the other day said that after the first week of April, it's going to be kind of warm and dry.
Oh, okay.
And so we could get caught up on all that stuff in April without any problem.
You go.
Without any repercussions for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And then usually when we have a slow start to the season, we get a long fall. And so, last year we had kind of a slow start to the season. We got a nice long fall, so
it stayed warm.
Yeah, you could harvest right until middle of October, and then we had like really cold temperatures that kicked in, and it like froze all the leaves on the trees, and leaves hadn't even like really changed colors and fallen off the trees, so it just like froze them right on the trees, and they just turned brown, dark brown or black, and kind of stuck on all winter long. So we ended up seeing that quite a bit.
Is there a pattern for northern Utah? Because they say we're moving. The La Nina, I guess, is over, and we're possibly moving into a maybe strong El Nino.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what that, how that affects our weather here in northern Utah.
I think it can go either way. It just depends on where that jet stream comes. And La Nina, I think it kind of tends to be a little bit wetter, and El Nino tends to be a little bit drier. But we'll see what Mother Nature throws at us for next year. We've definitely had a very moist season so far. So, they're saying right now the fifth wettest snowpack that we've ever accumulated, and snowpack is not over yet.
Right.
If we get rain this next week, we're going to get rain, maybe a little bit of slush down here. It'll melt off pretty quick if we do get some, but then it's going to accumulate more in the mountains. That's what I'm saying. We need 50s and 60s down here to start melting some of that accumulation,
right.
because if we stay in the 50s, it's still 32 up there, and it's not melting.
Not melting as fast. Yeah.
No, and we want it to melt, but we don't want it to melt like all at once.
Yeah, right.
And so when we get those 80 to 90 degree temperatures the end of May, after having a cold, wet spring, then it's all going to come down. It's all going to come down at once. So we want some nice 60-degree daytime temperatures, and for the next couple of months, just to kind of get that gradual, slow runoff, because the river's got nothing in it right now.
Yeah,
it goes past my house, and I looked at it the other day. And it's like, dang, there's water in there, but it's not like anything to write home about.
Yeah. You're just slow and steady.
Slow and steady, yep. Yeah. Slow and steady. So at Anderson's, as I was saying to start the show off, we've got bare root fruit trees that came in, and it's not everything, but this is our first batch. And we've got some gorgeous trees. There's some great peaches, there's nectarines, there's apricots, cherries. We've got quite a few apples and pears and plums. Some pluots, which is a cross between an apricot and a plum, and I've got some plueries as well too, which is a cross between a plum and a cherry. So those are some really interesting fruit trees as well too. I've got mulberries, and then all the small fruits started coming in this week. So we got currants and gooseberries and elderberries, blueberries, blackberries. Got some golden raspberries that came in. Asparagus plants look amazing. We saw those came in just the other day. They look really, really great. And potatoes as well, too. So we've got asparagus and potatoes. Next week, Strawberries are going to show up probably midweek, and grapes are probably going to show up midweek as well too. So we are ready to go at Anderson's, and we've had to bring a lot of the trees inside the greenhouse because we just had too much snow out in the nursery section to set them up out there. So I'm hoping next week that snow's going to finish melting off. We can move those out of the greenhouses. We can start getting the greenhouses set up and ready to go.
Even if we get snow by later March, the snow does not stick around.
It melts off really quick. So yeah, we just need some good, warm, sunny days to kind of finish this off. But we're ready at Anderson Seed and Garden. Our bare root sale is going on right now. And even if you can't plant, I've got a lot of people coming in, and they're getting their trees, and they're getting their blueberries, and they're getting their elderberries, and they're just going to put them in a cooler location. So put them in the garage where it's nice and cool. We want to simulate refrigerator conditions. So if we've got somewhere between 35 and 50 degrees, they will just sit there for weeks, and they'll be just fine. Yeah, a little bit of moisture on the root system just to keep the root system wet, and they're good to go. I mean, most of these plants have been put in big refrigerators to be ready to shipped when the time is right. So we've got them, and they're ready to go. Had someone in the other day, bought 26 fruit trees.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot of holes to dig.
Yeah.
It's a lot
they are going to be, we know what they're doing the
next couple of weeks. Yeah. Lots of hole digging. So, hey, we've got phone lines open. If you'd like to join our conversation, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. Bill and I are just talking about bare root fruit trees. We can talk pruning. It's a great time to get outside and do some pruning. In fact, our crews are out pruning right now. They're about 2 weeks behind schedule, but we're going to try and get as much done in the next couple of weeks as we can before things really start to happen. Great time to do your dormant spray after you've done your pruning, but we want our temperatures to be a little bit higher, so we can talk dormant spray. Early crops, what you can plant as soon as the soil dries out. We can definitely cover early crops. How to fertilize and get some of that snow off your lawn. Had somebody in yesterday, and they're like, I want to put my fertilizer on. I was like, why don't you put some Humate on? They're like, what's that? And so we talked Humate and how it will help melt that snow really quickly. But
works
also,
like ice melt.
It really does, yeah. But it also gets into your soil, and then it's got minerals and micronutrients and microbes and microorganisms that are really, really beneficial for your soil, build your soil back up, and it's great for gardens as well, too. So I had them put the Humate on, and then they're going to put the fertilizer on as soon as the snow's gone, so they don't lose all their nitrogen as well, too.
I had a question with, because I used a fair amount of ice melt on the sidewalks this winter. Is this, the stuff, the popular stuff that they sell at, you can get it at any grocery stores, Smith's or whatever. Is it harmful to grass if it gets on the grass?
It can be, because it's got salt in it. And so a lot of salt and a lot of salt accumulation in your soil can be problematic. And so what happens is when the cities have to salt as much as they did this year, because the roads were just like constantly getting covered with snow. So they had
people need to get to work.
So they had to put a lot of ice melt down, and it's salt based. That ends up into your park strip. And so as they plow that snow that comes down after they've treated, then all that salt gets
thrown on there.
It gets liquefied, as the water hits it. So it's now water soluble, and so now it's into the slush. And then the plows come and push it, and they push it onto your park strip, onto your lawn, and so it can actually do some real damage to your park strip and planting areas that you might have out there. And really, the best way to bind up that sodium so it doesn't damage your plants is gypsum. And so gypsum, we've got in 50-pound bags. I've got 20-pound bags as well, too. And the gypsum is great because it will tie up that calcium. It will bind up the calcium so your plants can't pick it up, and it will prevent them from getting damaged from the salt. So if you've really had a lot of snow and a lot of ice melt that you've kind of had to use because you didn't want to fall and break your neck on the sidewalk, I mean, which is worse, falling down the ice because you didn't want to use ice melt and breaking something, or having a little bit of damage on your turf. We can deal with the turf damage.
Well,
I
was worried about people that walk on the sidewalk that are walking through.
So it's like you got to do it, and there's some ice melt varieties that are safer for yards and for pets and for people. Think about the dogs that are walking on the sidewalk and ends up on their paws. They end up licking their paws. And they end up ingesting it as well too. And so there's some things we can do to prevent that kind of damage. And when it comes down to it, it's like, you got to use it. If it ends up in some of your plantings or on your turf, we can neutralize that with gypsum. The gypsum has sulfur in it, so it lowers your soil pH, which is really good for your plants. And then it's got a lot of calcium in there, and the calcium it ties up those sodium ions, and so they are not available to the plant, so it binds it up, and it will prevent salt damage in your turf. So the gypsum is really, really helpful for that. It's not as good at breaking up clay soils as everyone thought it was, but it's really, really good at preventing salt damage. And the calcium that's in there is great for your plants too. The plants need calcium to really, all those functions inside the plant needs that calcium, so that can be really helpful as well too. So phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. Are you going to be at the Home and Garden Show next week?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. It's next Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Well, everything is so strange because the winter has lasted as long as it has. It's kind of like somebody was asking me, daylight savings time this week? It seems really early. And I'm like, no, it's the same weekend. It's just that it looks
normal time.
Like January.
Yeah, normal time. So, but the Home and Garden Show is next week. We sponsor the Home and Garden Show at Anderson Seed and Garden, so we are the proud sponsors of the Home and Garden Show. And last I heard, there were a couple booths left still.
Oh, okay.
I talked to Ryan the other day, and he's like, yeah, I think we might have a booth or two left. So if anybody wants to participate, I think you could still get in before Wednesday's setup day. So that's
so do it
quick before Wednesday.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, that'll be
Wednesday.
Nice. Next at the Eccles
Ice Arena,
Event Center,
and then I think it opens on Friday at 10 o'clock and goes until 7 at night. And then on Saturday, it opens at 9 and goes until 6. And we'll be there. We've got a big booth. We'll have all kinds of gorgeous plants. We will have seed collections. We will have seed starting kits. I mean, that's another thing we can talk about today is starting seeds indoors. It's prime time for starting your peppers, and we are just like right there, just around the corner for starting your tomato plants, probably next week. If you want to grow your own tomato plants, have them ready to transplant out by Mother's Day. Probably next week or the last week of March is going to be the perfect time to start those indoors and have those ready to go. And there's some tricks to being successful with planting your own plants inside. So we can definitely talk about some of that as well, too. But looks like we've got a couple callers calling in right now. We're going to grab those. And if you would like to call in and join us here on the Garden Guide, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. So call in with those questions or comments. We'd be glad to get you. We'd be glad to get you on the air. So, Bill, who is our first caller?
We have Jan on the line.
All right. Good morning, Jan. Welcome to the Garden Guide.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
When we do the trimming on both the trees that have disease in them or are bad shape, maybe even bugs, and we do our raspberries and we suspect that they're cane borers.
Right.
What do we do with those trimmings? Can we put them on the edge of the yard? Do we need to burn them, or what do we do?
You can compost them. You can burn them. If there's insects in the raspberry canes, it's always good to destroy those so you don't have them emerging still and then coming back and causing more problems. Diseases, if they're left on the ground around the trees, they can be reinfected by that. So usually we'll gather up all the trimmings and then either put them in the green waste container, send them down to the landfill, or like you said, you can burn them. That would be great. It's kind of hard to compost them on your own unless you shred them. You'd want to shred them up so they're in much smaller pieces, and then they'll break down a lot faster in your composter. But the twigs themselves in the compost, it'll take forever for them to break down. So you want to probably get rid of those. What kind of trees?
A lot of fruit trees. We have about 25 fruit trees, and then a lot of blackberries, raspberries, and black raspberries.
Sure. And raspberry cane borer we want to treat usually I'd say right around Mother's Day, between Mother's Day and Memorial Day, I'll do a treatment, and we'll mix up, like, permethrin is excellent for the cane borers, but it also works on crown borer, which is a slightly different insect that attacks the crowns of the raspberries and not so much the upper parts of the canes. And so we'll mix that up and water the raspberries, blackberries, with that, and it will control any crown borer that are in the soil. But then we'll spray the canes right before they bloom, and then again right after. So last year they didn't bloom until the end of May, so it was a little bit later. But usually we'll spray those right before they bloom, and then again right after they're done blooming. That way we don't bother the bees, and that helps with the raspberry cane borer that gets into the raspberries as well too. And there's some good options for the cane borer that are more natural. If you want to do like spinosad, that does a really great job as well too. Kills the larvae, but it won't hurt the adults. So
good.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have both cane and crown borers?
It is. Usually it's harder to diagnose the crown borer, but they do so much damage in a short amount of time. The whole sections of the raspberries will just die out. Not just the tops of the canes, but like the whole canes will die back. And so they're damaging the canes right where they come up out of the soil, and basically all your canes will just die off. Where with the cane borer, just the top, usually 12 inches, is really affected by those cane borers. So
they won't go down along farther than about 12 inches?
No, when the adults come and they lay their eggs on the canes, the little grubs that are in there, they go into the cane and then they go straight up. And so they go up instead of down. And so you'll see damage from where the entry point is up towards the tip. And that's why the tips kind of turn a darker green and then turn brown and kind of curl over. You get that kind of shepherd's crook to them. And so they go up instead of down.
And last year we were watching for both. We had the cane borers for sure.
Yeah.
But we would cut back the cane like 6 inches, 12 inches, 18 inches. And we were finding that brown path down deeper and deeper.
Yes.
And the farther the season went on, the deeper that brown path went. Was that the crown borer?
It depends on how old the canes are. Usually the cane borers go after the new canes, and so we'll like cut them off like 12 inches, and then you can split the cane open, and you can find the little grubs in there. They may have started down lower and then just worked their way up, and then as they tunnel upwards, they leave kind of this brown frass in there that just damages the canes. They usually don't go down, and crown borers don't go into the canes and move up. They just damage the crowns right there in the soil line, and so they won't move up.
Are these coming from somewhere in the air, like they're flying into our garden?
They are flying in, yeah. So it's a airborne insect that comes and lays its eggs on the canes, and they kind of look like a black wasp. So if you look at raspberry cane borer, you can look it up online. You can see a picture what the adults look like, and they look kind of like a very dark black wasp, but they don't have stingers. They don't sting people or anything. So,
do they make nests in the berries?
No, they just come in and lay their eggs, start the cycle all over again. So, like I said, the permethrin does a really great job because it'll kill the adults as well as the eggs as they hatch out, so it'll kill the larva. The spinosad, being a natural bacteria, it will kill the larva as they hatch out, and it'll kill them as they start to bore into the canes as well too. But once they're deep inside the canes, then it won't affect them, either of those insecticides. So you got to get them before they hatch out. So that's why we spray before it blooms and then again later.
Before blooms and then again later. So yeah. I wrote down before blooms, but what is the again later?
After they're done blooming. Because the permethrin lasts about 2 to 3 weeks, and so they're usually in bloom for 2 or 3 weeks, and you can spray right after that. And bifenthrin and permethrin are safe to use when there's fruit on the plants as well too. Just up to like a week before you harvest, you could use that as necessary.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You are so welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, Jan. Good luck with your raspberries, and have fun out there pruning your trees.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Bye.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Like I said, we are out pruning trees, and we've got our fruit growing guide at Anderson's, and most of that information in our fruit guide is on our website for free, so you can get that information. But we've got our fruit growing guide. It's a 100-plus page book that shows you how to grow every single kind of small fruit and all of your large fruits that grow well in our area. There is no information in there, Bill, about persimmons.
Oh,
Yeah. Nothing in there about persimmons. There's nothing in there about figs. But there is a lot of information in there about apples and pears and strawberries and apricots and plums and peaches and things that grow here is what's in our fruit guide.
Right.
But
Makes
it also has a pruning guide in there that shows you all the parts of the plant so you can recognize the parts of the trees that you're going to be pruning. And then it shows you how to make the cuts and what kind of cuts will encourage what kind of growth. And then it tells you how to prune specific fruits because you prune your apples very differently than you do your peaches. So it's got some information on there to show you examples of how to prune some of your fruit trees that would be different from some of your other fruit trees. And really what it will do is it will make you feel comfortable getting out there and pruning. It's not going to make you an expert immediately, but it's going to make you comfortable so you can get outside and prune your trees and not feel like you're going to kill them. Because I think that's what people are afraid of. Yeah. It's like I don't want to prune because
I know I'll mess this up.
I'm going to really mess it up. And so it's there to make you feel comfortable enough that if you desire to go out and prune your trees, because some people just don't want to. Period. Right. It doesn't matter how much knowledge you're equipped with. You're just not going to do it. So I'm just going to pay somebody else to do it. But if you really want to do your own, this will make you feel comfortable enough. You can go out there and prune it and not feel like, hey,
and you'll save money.
Yeah, I just destroyed my tree. And that's the idea. Then we also have some really great videos on our website as well too that walk you through the same process, show you where to make the cuts and how to prune the tree. And then just by doing it, you learn so much as well too. You learn how to do it. And okay, this is where I made the cuts last year. Oh, that's where the growth went this year. So then you can kind of learn how to adjust as you're going, and it takes years to figure that out, but it's really rewarding and satisfying when you go out and you prune your own trees and do a good job, and then your trees produce fruit, and you go, dang, I really did. I really did a good job,
That's true.
So not too bad.
Definitely a nice accomplishment.
Yep. Well, we're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a little short break. Call us with your questions or comments, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. We've got a lot to talk about here on the Garden Guide. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back after just a few messages.
Bill Walter, KVNU News. Governor Cox issued an executive order late this past week providing an optional 8 hours of administrative leave for all state employees of executive branch agencies to support community flood responses. Utah has experienced high levels of precipitation this winter season, leading to snowpack levels exceeding 150% in most of the state. The increased water will help with the state's ongoing drought, but precipitation is already causing flooding and creating flood risks. The governor said with the weather warming up, flooding is a major disaster concern in Utah. State employees are community-minded, and he says everyone knows how that many will want to support their local emergency response teams for the common good. A 9-year-old boy was airlifted to a hospital after a roof slide of snow buried him at an Alta condominium. According to officials of the Alta Marshal's Office, they were called to a condominium complex in the town of Alta on Wednesday just before 5:30 p.m. following reports of a child who had been buried in snow from a roof slide. The press release says the Alta Town Marshal's Office deputy arrived within 2 minutes and began a search using an avalanche probe. Members of the UDOT avalanche forecasting team arrived and quickly joined the deputy. The boy was quickly found and dug out from under the snow. Officials said that the boy was reported to be in improved, stable condition at Primary Children's Hospital. Clear to partly cloudy over the weekend, upper 30s to around 40, but rain and snow back in the forecast starting late Sunday. For the latest news, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
From ABC Sports, I'm Mark Remillard. More upsets last night in the NCAA tournament, including the first number 1 going down.
Moore will drive, left elbow jumper, snaps the twine.
Westwood won on the call. Fairleigh Dickinson shocks top of the East Purdue, 63-58 the final score. A stunning finish in FAU Memphis.
Boyd fakes the three, drives into the paint to the rim, finger roll over the front of the rim is good.
Westwood won with the call. The late winner by Nicholas Boyd lifted the Owls to a tough win over Memphis, 66-65. 6th overall Marquette facing off against Virginia. Not a close affair there.
And for the first time since 2013, the Marquette Golden Eagles are winners in the NCAA tournament.
CBS contributing that call. Cam Jones led all scorers with 19 points, helping Marquette win their first game at the Big Dance since 2013, 78-61 the final. This is ABC Sports.
It's time to vote in the Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
Reward your favorite businesses in Northern Utah by casting your vote at bestofnorthernutah.com. You can vote once per day, every day through March 29th.
Best of Northern Utah.
This is the contest every business hopes to win. So vote now and let your voice be heard. Go to bestofnorthernutah.com and vote now.
Best of Northern Utah.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Ben Falso there.
This is Ben.
Each week, we look for people who go above and beyond. And someone notified us and let us know about how you've been in the military since you were 18.
That is correct.
How many years have you been in?
Just over 21 right now.
How many deployments have you had altogether?
This will be my 3rd.
We have a $40 gift card for you for the service that you have given not only to our country, but to our community.
I appreciate it.
Recognizing first responders and other deserving individuals in our community on News Talk KVNU. Taking the guesswork out of gardening. It's the Garden Guide with Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Good morning and welcome back to the Garden Guide. This is Mark Anderson with Anderson Seed and Garden. Hey, we've been talking fruit trees. We've been talking raspberries already. We've had a couple great questions phoned in, and Bill came well armed with questions from your wife this morning.
Yeah. She had another one. She's interested in planting a low-maintenance ground cover in our yard besides grass. What ground cover would be good?
There's quite a few ground covers that are quite nice. Is it a sunny location or a shady location? Do you know?
Well, a little, kind of somewhere in between.
Okay, so something that it can do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So ground covers will be available usually towards the middle to latter part of April. Since they are greenhouse grown, they are a little sensitive to the weather. So we don't want to bring them in too early because even though they're hardy plants, where they've been in a 70-degree temperature greenhouse, perfect conditions, you move them outside, plant them, they're not really happy right off the bat. So we need it to be a little bit warmer. So probably towards the end of April, all the way through May, June, July, we'll have ground covers in stock. For shady locations, there's some really great ones. So woodruff does well in shade or partial sun. Ajuga, all the vincas do really well in shady locations. Those would be excellent. And let's see. For sunnier locations, you could do snow and summer. You could do.
That's what it's called.
It's called snow and summer.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Its scientific name is Cerastium. Creeping Jenny is really nice. A lot of those shady plants can handle the sun as well too. So the vinca can handle full sun or full shade. They'll do great. There's a bunch of creeping thyme that will do great, like woolly thyme and elfin thyme and just the plain creeping thyme. Mother of thyme. And then the great thing about the thyme is you step on it and it smells really, really good. You can use it to cook with as well too, but the thyme smells awesome.
Now what kind of thyme you mentioned?
So there's multiples. So there's like woolly thyme, which has kind of a fuzzy grayish leaf. There is creeping thyme, which is green leafed, kind of a little bit of bronze color in it, but then it has pink flowers, kind of pinkish purple flowers all over it. Elfin thyme's the same way too. Not elephant thyme, but elfin.
Elfin.
E-L-F-I-N. Elfentime. And then...
and those are good in either sunny or shady, or mostly...
The thyme more sunny, but they could handle a little bit of shade. But the creeping Jenny and the vinca, and the snow and summer, they can handle full sun. Yeah. And then I like the soapwort is really good, and saponaria. There's some really nice ground cover strawberries that are like alpine strawberries. They have little pink flowers on them, and they'll spread all over the place. Ice plant is great. Boy, there's so many different ones that are all really, they're all pretty drought tolerant, Bill. They don't need like tons of water, but they're not like native plants that are they don't need any extra water at all. So they're not built that way, but they are very, very drought tolerant. So minimal watering compared to your turf. Yeah,
that's why they're called low maintenance.
Yeah, they're really low maintenance because once and the interesting thing about ground covers is ground cover is a really nice word for invasive weed. And that's kind of what they are, because they will spread all over the place. They're more aggressive than most plants, and they're more aggressive than most weeds, and so they'll just like spread all over the place.
And maybe get rid of the bad weeds.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They will keep other plants. They will prevent them from growing into that area. So usually, what you want to do is have an area that is well defined with some borders and possibly some edging in the ground so that they don't spread all over the place, because you've got, you could do mints, and you could do, Irish moss and Scottish moss and speedwell. There's so many different ones, and we'll have samples of all of those so you can come in and take a look at them, see what they look like when they're blooming. They'll have information on the tags, and you can just like look and say, oh, I really like how that looks. That'd look really good. And then look at the tag and go, okay, that's going to do great in a partially shady, partially sunny location. Perfect. It's like just what I need. And so we've got all that information at the store when the ground covers start rolling in, and it's going to be about a month. I would suspect they'll start coming in about a month, and they'll do great.
Okay, very good.
All right, hope that answered your wife's question.
That does. Very. And I was feverishly taking notes.
And we do have some callers on the line. We're going to get to the callers here in a second, but if you'd like to call in with a question or comment, phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753 KVNU. Who's up next, Bill?
First up is Ron.
All right. Good morning, Ron. Welcome to the Garden Guide.
Thanks, Mark. Just supposing that I plant things like potatoes and tomatoes in my garden in the same spot year after year after year.
Yes.
Am I looking for resident diseases in the soil? Is the Monterey Complete Disease Control going to help me, or what should I do other than do the right thing and rotate my location?
Yes. Tomatoes and potatoes and raspberries all kind of pick up a lot of the same diseases. And so you kind of want to move them from location to location so they're not always in the same spot. If you can't do that, then a disease control, especially a biological disease control like the Complete Disease Control from Monterey, or the Fungi 5 from Fertilome, new product from Fertilome this year, those will control diseases in the soil. And so you can stop diseases that may have accumulated or built up in your soil over time and prevent that from happening. So I had really, really good results on my tomato plants last year with the high pressure of disease that we had. It seems like everybody all throughout the state into Idaho and surrounding states had disease problems last year because it was cold and wet all the way through May. And so we saw more disease last year than we normally do. I had a couple of my heirloom plants that really did not perform very well and kind of kicked the bucket. But pretty much all the rest of my plants did amazing, and I attribute it to the Complete Disease Control, which we use. So it will really help a bunch, Ron.
All right. Thanks.
All right. You are so welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, and have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Bye.
And we have Lori on the line.
All right. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning. Okay, I'm worried about my pear tree. I haven't had a pear tree for years and years and years. I know how to prune.
Okay.
I know how to prune peaches, and I know how to prune apples, which are very different. How do you prune pears? I mean, I was going to go on your website and look it up, but
yeah. You do them just like your apples. Yeah, prune them just like your apples.
It's like apples. So they bear on the older.
And they bear on spurs. Yeah, so they bear on spurs like the apples do. So once you get a fruit-bearing spur on the apples and the pears, those spurs will produce for 8 to 10 years. And so they will just keep producing in those same locations year after year. So prune your pears just like you prune your apples, and you can go modified leader. You can do more of an open vase if you want to keep your trees smaller. So you've got some multiple options of how you want to train your tree, as well as prune it just like your apple.
Okay, so the spurs look different. Are they like the little swelled?
Yes.
Buds?
Exactly.
So I've got these suckers that are going straight up, and they have these little swelled buds on the very end. Are they going to have a pear on it?
No. So when I prune, the first thing I look for is anything that's dead, damaged, diseased, or broken. And so I will go through and take out all the big branches first, because then that saves me work and time later. Because if I'm doing small detail work and then I have to take a big branch out that I was already working on, it's like I just wasted 10 minutes of pruning time. So big stuff goes out first. Then I look for anything that's crossing over, rubbing up against each other, coming back into the center of the tree. And then third thing is water sprouts. And those water sprouts, you take them off this year, and then they'll be back again next year, and you take them off next year, and they'll be back again the year after. They just
those are the ones that go straight up.
They shoot straight up. The coloring is slightly different from the rest of the tree, and so you can usually identify those pretty easily, because they start at the top of the branch and they just shoot straight up, and just. I don't even count that as part of my pruning. Like if I'm shooting for taking off 25% of the tree, I don't even count that as the 25%, because those just need to leave no matter what. They're going to be unproductive wood. They're not going to produce any fruit for you.
Okay, my daughter has a really, really old pear tree, and she wants to shape it. She's bought a house.
Yeah.
And so follow those rules, and then what does she look for? I mean, I don't know. Apple spurs to me are really easy to see, but the spurs, I thought, is that a spur?
Yep, the spurs usually come off the bottom of the branches, but they can come off the sides and the top sometimes. Okay. And they do have kind of accumulated tissue right where they attach to the branch, so it kind of pleats up a little bit.
Okay.
And then the growth is just small. I mean, it's usually not any longer than your pinky, and sometimes even shorter than that. So it's a little short growth. The tissue's kind of like pleated or clustered together. It's kind of wrinkly right there, and then you'll just get flower producing buds right there.
For the short.
Right. And so don't take those off, because sometimes you see that growth coming off and you go, oh, that's not going to turn into a branch. Well, it's not. It's going to turn into fruit. So, yeah. So if she's got an older tree, what I would do is I would get in there and, again, take all the dead, damaged, disease, broken stuff out. Take out any branches that are cutting back into the middle, branches that are going to cross over, just really get that tree thinned out. And then that's where you can start making some thinning cuts to kind of open the tree up a little bit, start taking some of the excess branches off, and then you make heading cuts to direct it to go fill in the gaps where you had to take a big branch out. And at that point you can just really start cleaning them up. And it's going to take her a couple of years to do that. Yeah, it's going to take a couple of years to really get it back under control. But if she does, she's going to get a lot better fruit production, and fruit's going to ripen up. It's going to be bigger, and it's going to taste better. And right when you're done pruning, that's a great time to fertilize your trees. A lot of people just don't think about fertilizing their fruit trees. And, think about it. If they're there for 20 or 25 years, they've used up almost all the nutrient that's naturally there in the soil long ago. And so supplement those. Yeah. I use a slow-release fertilizer that is called 365, and it will last basically the whole year. And I just broadcast it underneath all my fruit trees. And as it rains and as it gets hit with a sprinkler, it just releases a little bit of nutrient all summer long. And it's a natural fertilizer. It's got beneficial microbes and microorganisms in there, so it really builds the soil up, frees the nutrient up to the plants, especially to the trees, and will feed them all summer long. And you'll see just increased production and more vigorous and healthy trees if you just fertilize a little bit. You don't have to.
Okay, so you fertilize out around the edge where the roots are new?
Yep, out by the drip line, so out where the tips of the branches reach. Yep, but you can do from the drip line in towards the trunk as well too. There's a lot of feeder roots in there.
Okay.
Also.
And 365, is that what you said?
Yeah, it's called 365. It's made by As Green as It Gets, and it's a fertilizer that we started using a couple years ago, and I put it in my garden, and my vegetable garden just went ballistic. It just went crazy, like best production I've had for years. And I do the humate, and I put a lot of fertilizer in there as well too. But this really, really made a big difference. And so I used it on my fruit trees last year, and they just went gangbusters. They went crazy. So
yeah, mine all died. Well, I didn't have any peaches. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. We had so much fruit I couldn't get rid of it. But a lot of the fruits, the blossoms got frozen last year. So we had some trees that really went crazy, and others that didn't have a speck of fruit on them. And it's not because the trees weren't healthy. It's just all the blossoms got frozen.
Yeah, the tree looks okay. It's just
yeah. So
all right. Well, thank you very much.
You're so welcome, Lori. Have a wonderful weekend.
I will.
All right.
I'll see you at the garden show.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
All right. We've got about, 10 minutes left in the show, Bill?
Yeah.
And phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868.
All right. Another question here. My wife loves our indoor basil plants.
Yes.
Likes to use those, for cooking and different things.
Right.
How often should she be watering an indoor basil?
Indoors, that's a great plant. Great question. Indoors, you usually don't have to water as much, and so what I would recommend is that you check the soil, like water them thoroughly, let the water drain out through the bottom, and then stick your finger in after 4 or 5 days and see if the soil is still moist down an inch or so. And if it's still moist down an inch or two, then let it go a couple more days. So indoor plants, we're usually only watering maybe once a week because they just really don't dry out that much. And the basil plant are pretty resilient, but they'll also tell you when they're thirsty. And so they'll kind of wilt a little bit if they're thirsty.
And
and
we've seen that.
That's a good time to water them because really, if you're watering them more than that, they're staying too soggy and they're staying too wet. They're not doing really well. So I would suggest you do like a really mild fertilizer every time you water to like encourage growth. So something with a little bit of nitrogen in there. So that's the first number. Because the basil, we're going to eat that growth.
Yeah.
So we're going to eat that. So we want it to keep growing. So fertilize it very consistently. Every time you water, fertilize it. But you're probably only watering every week to 10 days. And I'd kind of shoot for that. And if it's not wilting in a week, give it a couple more days. And when you start to see it just kind of wilt just a little bit, then hit it. And with ours, what I do is I'll either take it and put it in the tub or put it in the sink and water it until the water drains out. And then leave it in there for half an hour, let the excess drain out, and then take it and put it back in its saucer so it doesn't stand in water and absorb all that extra moisture back up. Because then if you're watering once a week and it's collecting all that moisture and it pulls it back in, then it's just soggy all the time.
Right.
All the time. So
a little bit of a balance there.
Yes, exactly.
All right, next up we have Wes on the line.
Good morning, Wes.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah.
We have had fire blight go through our neighborhood and affect our apple trees.
Yes.
And I have tried to prune everything back that I think where the bark looks kind of that yellowish brown and the limbs die. I'm just wondering if that comes back year after year and at what point I need to just say I tried my best and take the apple trees out.
Yes. There are some varieties of apples and pears that are more resistant, more tolerant of the fire blight, and they won't be affected by it. So that is an option in the future. But if you have pruned out all the parts that you think were infected, what happens is that bacteria winters over inside the trees, and it creates cankers on the trees. And in the spring, when things start to warm up and the sap starts to flow through the trees, those cankers will split open, and it releases some of the sap out of the tree that has the infection in it already, and it will reinfect the tree. And so usually it's when we get wind and splashing rain while the blossoms are open is when the disease gets spread the most. And that's exactly what we had last year, those conditions when the the trees started blooming. We had a lot of wet days. We had a lot of cool days, and cool nights and warm days, and a lot of rain and splashing, and it kind of spread fire blight all over the place. So the best thing you can do to try and prevent that is, of course, what you've already done. Prune aggressively, get that tissue that may be infected out of the tree. Then you can actually do a preventative application of a product that is called Garden Foss. Garden Foss you can apply to the trunk of the tree. It's very easy to do. You just mix it up in water, put a little bark penetrant in there, which we have at the store, and you just paint it or spray it, real coarse spray right on the trunk. It'll absorb it in through the trunk, run it through the entire circulatory system of the tree, and protect the tree from the disease if it gets infected again. And we've had really, really great luck, great results, not luck, but results putting this on trees that have been infected in the past to prevent them from getting infected again in the future. And it's very, very effective. And you can also spray it on the blossoms to prevent the bacteria from getting back into the tree while it's in bloom as well, too. So it's a very versatile fungicide. It's very, very safe to use. You can use it on all kinds of edibles. It's essentially, once applied to the plants, non-toxic to people, but very, very effective on a certain number of diseases that are very difficult to get under control.
And I should do that now, or is that too early?
I would do it anytime in the next couple of weeks, because you really want to get it on 2 or 3 weeks in advance of the trees blooming. And I'm suspecting that we're going to have blossoms on the trees the latter part of April this year. It's just everything's going to be pushed back a couple of weeks. So plan on it.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome, Wes. Good luck, and hope you can get your trees healthy and productive again this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Have a great weekend.
And next up, we have Christine.
All right. Good morning, Christine.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great.
I'm trying to hurry. Do you have onion sets in yet?
Onion sets came in day before yesterday. So we have yellow, red, and white for onion sets. And I have some red shallots. And then I've also got the onion plants that we get in from Texas, but we're low on, I think Big Daddy we ran out of yesterday. We may have run out of candy as well, too, but I've got another batch coming on probably Wednesday or Thursday of next week. So we'll have onions in stock for the next 6 weeks for the onion plants, yeah.
If you buy them now and just let them sit, my garden's on the north side of my house.
Yeah.
And it's still got snow on it.
What? You still have snow on the north side of your house? What's going on at your place?
I don't know.
Yeah. You and everyone else in Cache Valley, right? You and everyone else.
I'm grateful for that. So if I come in and buy my potatoes too, I just hang on to them until it gets warmer.
Just keep them in a cool, dry spot. Not too cold, so we don't want them to freeze, but we would like them to stay cool. So 40 to 45 degrees would be like perfect. They'll be good for weeks. Yeah.
I don't have a garage.
And then I've got potatoes coming almost weekly. I've got onions coming almost weekly. So if you don't want to find a spot for them, we'll have plenty.
Yeah, because last years I waited too long and then ran out.
And then we're out, yeah. And with the onion plants, we will run out the first part of May. With the potatoes, usually I have potatoes coming in consistently through the end of May and the 1st of June. So we usually have plenty of those.
I've been making a list. I've got potatoes. I better come in and get zucchini, the yellow kind.
Yeah.
I like the with the seeds. And then I got pumpkins. I got onion sets. So
yeah, I would say on the seeds we have like 95% of everything is in stock. I'm waiting for a shipment from my last grower, and it's just like there's a few things that we're waiting for. So I'm out of Blue Lake bush beans at the moment, but they'll be in any day. I'm really surprised they didn't show up like Thursday or Friday. They were supposed to ship on Wednesday. So those will be here. Those will be here any day.
I just don't have enough room. And then my apple trees are 30-plus years old.
Yeah.
Do I just keep fertilizing them and babying them?
Just keep fertilizing and pruning.
Yeah.
They'll go for 100 years. So
serious?
Yeah, they're very, very long-lived trees, so no worries there.
And then you talked about humate on your melt snow. Can
Yes.
you do it in your garden, too?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm about ready to go out there and get it on my garden so I can get planting here really soon. So
Yeah, but then I might have mud and dogs.
yeah, I'm probably going to have that too. So yeah. Thanks, Christine.
Okay, so I'll just wait till 1st of April and make my list and come in and get everything.
That sounds great. Sounds great. Sun's going to shine.
Okay, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome, Christine. So thanks for calling.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Yeah.
You too. Hey,
bye.
Everyone that called in today with questions or comments, I do have a prize for you. So Jan, Ron, Lori, Wes, and Christine, if you stop in the store today or even the first part of next week, I have some extra amaryllis bulbs that are just getting ready to bloom. So be glad to share those with you. So thanks for calling in this morning. I do have prizes for my special callers. And Bill, if you want to stop in too, your wife had like multiple questions, but she only gets one. But she only gets one bulb. She only gets one bulb.
Not one bulb per question.
And yeah, not one bulb per question.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but one bulb. But I'd be glad to share one with you too. So thanks to everyone who called in with questions or comments. We'll be back again next week with another edition of The Garden Guide.
News Talk KVNU. Logan, the voice of Northern Utah. 610 AM and 102.1.